Back to normal view.
Hey, when I was in school, we looked forward to that movie coming out.
Dude, when you were in school, they were still chipping letters into fucking tablets.
Yeah, I knew Cleopatra personally, actually.
Hey, you dorks, this is Gunnar Hansen, Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and you are listening to The Dorkening.
Hi, I'm Brian Johnson, and although you probably accidentally stumbled across it and have no idea why you're watching it, you are in fact watching The Dorkening.
Hello, this is Tom Kenny, voice actor, the voice of the Ice King on Adventure Time, and SpongeBob SquarePants. Meow. Oh, Gary the Snail, too. Hey, guess what you're filling your eye holes and ear holes with? The Dorkening! Oh, I love the Dorkening. Very popular in Ooh. And Bikini Bottom.
Hi, I'm Lou Ferrigno. You're watching The Dorkening. And you know what? You don't like me when I get angry, so don't get me angry. You better keep watching The Dorkening.
Hey guys, this is Felissa Rose, and you're watching The Dorkening.
Hey guys, it's Courtney Palm. We're shooting Death House, and you're watching The Dorkening.
This is Anthony Michael Hall, and you're watching The Dorkening. Stay tuned, my friend's going to show you what entertainment's all about, baby.
The Dorkening.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Rise and shine, my sinners. When Father Evil starts his day, he gets a little deadly. Deadly Grounds coffee has the richest, smoothest flavor you'll find anywhere. It's sinfully delicious. Once you go deadly, you never go back. Order yours at getdeadly.com. Coffee's so good, it's scary.
Dude, you're watching the Dorkening. This totally tubular man.
Radical.
Radical, man. What's your damage, man?
Oh, that was bogus.
Hey, you're watching Dorkening. We have an awesome 80s inspired show for you today. We're going to be talking about the new show, actually new movie, 8-Bit Christmas, which is totally 80s fueled. But we're going to be talking about our love for the 80s and, some of our favorite memories, some Saturday morning cartoons that we loved, arcades, just about everything. Garbage Pail Kids, did you collect those? It's going to be a lot of fun. But as always, Brandon, how's it going, my friend?
It is going, Leo, and I hope it's going for you and everyone out there as well.
Oh, it's going.
Woohoo!
Where's the beef?
What? Where's the beef? I have no idea.
RW.
Gonna get those dukes. We're live? Oh,
We're live.
Hey, you got the old Viewmasters out.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, talk about retro 80s. Actually, this goes way, way back, but yeah,
I remember those.
Here's a He-Man one. Here's Batman Returns. You got Dukes of Hazzard on this one over here.
Oh, they all just look red and white to me.
There you go. But yes, how's everybody doing?
Doing great. And we got a bunch of people watching. So if you're new to the show, thank you for joining us. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. And I love that you're here, RW, and Brandon too. But RW.
Well, good night, everybody.
All right. Take care, Brandon. Thanks for stopping in.
So RW, when I think of you, you're like a walking, time machine. It's just, I don't know what to say. It's like you're. Yeah.
What? It takes 1.21 gigawatts to charge him up?
Talkie. Yes. So, yeah, I'm an old geezer. That's why, because, born in 65 and grew up in the 70s and 80s and, for all that cool stuff that was cool. So, yeah, I experienced it all firsthand. So, yeah.
Well, so let's talk about that. You were born in 65. I was 74, so I was a teenager in the 80s. Brandon.
Don't let this old Tim Allen, the Santa Claus look fool you. 1982.
Ooh.
Yes. Yeah, I will be 40 next year.
Congratulations.
Oh,
he hasn't made it yet.
I know, right? Now. Fingers crossed, guys. Yeah, so there's actually a couple of years there in the 80s that I wasn't even around for. And I mean, let's be real. I don't really think 82 through 85 should necessarily count for anything because I was still figuring out how to not shit in my pants.
I was still
admittedly, I'm still working on that, but I was just learning it.
And there's a good chance you'll be working on it again in your future,
Yeah, I'm working on it right now.
All signs point to yes.
So everybody watching, definitely, we want this to be interactive. So, in the show notes, not in the show notes, in the messages, just
in the comments.
In the comments. Yeah.
Hey, Emily Rose said hi. And
hey, Emily.
Sergio, I can't see anything said. Who in the 80s? And happy Wednesday, everyone, from Tom Morse. Yeah, I have to wear readers now or I can't see anything. So, yeah.
I mean, I saw Happy Wednesday from Tom. I saw stuff from Sergio. I saw Emily say hi and then say, you guys are hilarious, which yes, you are correct, Emily. Thank you.
Tom says he was born in 78.
Okay.
And, so everybody watching, definitely, chime in the comments about your favorite items from the 80s. Everybody has special memories if you're, in that era. And a lot of it was revisited, if you had a chance to watch 8-Bit Christmas. Brandon, did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched it last week, as a matter of fact.
I'll tell you, I mean, my favorite Christmas movie and my favorite movie of all time is It's a Wonderful Life. My next favorite Christmas movie, I would have to say, is The Home Alones, and I love Scrooged with Bill Murray. But I never really got on board and this is where comments are going to fly, but I never got into A Christmas Story.
That's fine.
I watched 8-Bit, and from start to finish, I was like, this is probably one of my new favorite movies. It doesn't even, aside from it being a Christmas movie, it's one of my favorite movies. Well written, well acted, just fast paced, hilarious. It's what A Christmas Story could have been.
Yeah.
But I also like Jingle All the Way. And I think 8-Bit took A Christmas Story and Jingle All the Way and just pushed the envelope. And I thought it was awesome.
Well, I mean, if you look at Christmas Story, that was centered around what, like the 50s, the 60s, and
50s, early 50s.
Yeah. So 8-Bit Christmas. Christine says 80s pulled me here. Thanks. Glad you're joining us. Emily says my mom was a teenager in the 80s. And so 8-Bit Christmas, and we'll talk more about the 80s, but some of the stuff, like, I have to admit, I bawled my eyes out at the ending. Just
I'm 56 years old, not ashamed to admit that, but I could not. It really hits you in the feels, and very few movies do that. And let's not give it away for people who haven't seen it.
No,
but
everybody dies.
Oh my god!
All spoilers all the time.
Yeah,
well, I think the part is, in RW, definitely correct me if I'm wrong here, or if I'm not going to say. Sergio says I want to say hi to Brandon. Hey, Sergio. There was so many things that they got right on the nose, like the roller rink. That that was so 80s, and they had the lighting down and the mood and everything just perfect. And like the house, that was close to home because my dad was always working on things. We had bare walls, with everything torn down. There was just so many parts of the 80s that they just got spot on. That was just definitely brought you back into that time frame.
And you and I had talked about this the other day, but there was a skating rink in Williston, Vermont. I grew up in a town called Waterbury, and Williston was like 45 minutes away or whatever. And our church youth group would go there every now and then. It was called Skateland. Yeah. And when I saw that, I mean, a lot of roller rinks look the same, but I'm like, oh my God, that's Skateland. And you said for you, it was, what was yours called?
Great Skate.
Yeah. So you said, no, it looked like mine. And I'm like, no, it looked like mine. So I'm guessing that
it's 80s, almost like they all look the same.
Yeah. Isn't that weird?
How many different designs could you make for a fucking skating rink, guys? I mean, like, let's do the calculus on this.
A rink with a place to eat.
Okay, so parquet floors, open area, carpeted section all around it, arcade, place to eat. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, you nailed it.
I could design those things for a fucking living if it were 1981.
But how many? Okay, so I noticed this and Leo didn't, and I asked him, and he's like, "No, I didn't see that." So there's a scene in there where I don't want to give anything away, but there was something that it showed that we had talked about on a previous podcast that was underneath. I think everybody knows what the movie is about, but underneath, the thing that the movie's about was something else. And I'm like, did anybody else notice that? But I don't want to give away spoilers because maybe people haven't seen it.
Well, the item itself, what you saw, people, that's not really a spoiler, but it was a what was the player?
RCA Selectivision.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the one that I talked about that time with the there's a roller rink in my town of Waterbury I went to as a kid called Roller Magic, and I think it's still there. Oh, nice. Waterbury, Connecticut, I'm guessing. Anyways, so yeah, we have remember, I think you were here, Brandon. I had the plastic cases, and you pull the record thing out, and it wasn't Laserdisc, but it would look more like an LP. And usually I have all this stuff next to me that I can pull stuff out, but I don't. All I have is these. So yeah. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, I would say watch it. It's probably one of the best movies like ever. And you say that and someone watches it, like a friend of mine posted the other day that they hated the new Ghostbuster movie. And we're not going to get into that, but they were like, I think the one with the 4 women was way better. So I'm gonna
I'm gonna throw my my fresh hot take out here. I was
Please
not
do.
as enamored of 8-bit Christmas as the both of you are.
Well, that's okay.
I watched it and I found, it was okay. I'm glad I saw it, but it's not something that I actually think I'm gonna necessarily go out of my way to revisit. Um, I got the biggest kick out, and this we're not spoiler territory. The thing that made me laugh the most from the entire movie, like from start to end, like consistently, was the kid farmer, the compulsive liar.
Yeah.
Like that kid fucking slayed me. I don't know what it was about him, but like that particular kid, that actor, like I hope he's able to like continue on and hone those skills because he was a fucking riot. The whole like he got me from the second, this isn't spoiler, like they were in that kid's house and he just goes, "Don't touch the wall," and Farmer just looks at him and goes, I fucking almost pissed my pants. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, I don't remember like the brouhaha about Nintendo. I remember eventually getting a Nintendo for my 7th birthday, which I was then informed within 15 minutes of opening it at my party from my parents, mind you, that it was actually the family's Nintendo, which bullshit. Don't do that to a kid. Don't give them a thing for their birthday and say, well, it's not really for you. Oh, cool. But like, I completely understand what it was like to know a kid that had like all the stuff. That's something I could definitely resonate with. Thankfully, who I knew was not a douchebag. Like, I think a lot of kids, especially in the 80s going into the 90s, they realized that not everybody had that stuff. So if you wanted to play with someone else, you had to learn how to share your stuff with other people. I've never actually seen somebody, and I'm sure that plenty of people have had that experience, but I've never seen someone in my own life be so, like stingy and so reserved with other people being able to play their video games with them.
They're growing up, I'm not going to say who it is because it's but yeah, there was some kids that lived close that their family was very well off, and he was extremely spoiled, and they had like motorbikes and stuff like that, and like you go down to ride with them, and like oh, you're supposed to share. Okay, they'll drive around, they'll pause by you, then drive off again, drive around the field, pause by you, drive around again,
Well, like I said, I know that everybody, like a lot of people do know douchebags like that.
Oh yeah.
But I recognize the fact that I was fortunate that the people that I knew were very like generous and forthcoming, and they understood like, hey, this is more fun if my friends can enjoy it with me.
Yeah. Well, I had a friend that I'd visit. He lived like 45 minutes away, so I didn't visit him often, but that's where I got to play the Nintendo for the first time. And it was I remember seeing Super Mario Brothers, and we weren't like dirt poor, but we weren't like
I get it.
Yeah. So I had like Atari, and like when the video game crashed, my mom brought me into KB's. There's all these Atari games for like $1. She's like, "Oh, pick whatever you want." And I freaked out, And so I was a kid still playing Atari when everybody had like Nintendo and stuff. So.
I mean, it sounds like you did pretty well for yourself for a little while there. So
yeah, totally.
A friend of mine had an Atari, and I'd go over there and we play, tanks or whatever, and some other like Pac-Man or whatever. But then once I got a job this is funny. My sister got an Atari. She was married in like the 80s, 81 or 82 or something like that. And her husband bought her an Atari for Christmas. And I'm like, isn't that a slap in the face? Because I've asked for an Atari, for the last 5 Christmases. And my parents always said, we don't have that kind of money. And I'm like, well, what kind of money do you have? Like, let's figure this out. I'm like, don't get me anything else. Just get me the Atari.
We have extra sketch money. Get over it.
Yeah. I'm like, don't get me anything else. Just get me the Atari. And they wouldn't do it or whatever. But so anyways, I ended up borrowing this Atari from her for like a weekend, and I still have it. And that was like
It's a long
1982
weekend.
or whatever. But when I was able to get a job and make money, I bought the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, the Nintendo Virtual Boy, Game Gear. I mean,
Oh,
everything.
About the Virtual Boy?
Yeah, I still have it actually. But anyways, I would see all these, kids running around that we would ride bikes with or play, stupid games with or whatever. I'm like, hey, you guys want to come over? I got free candy. No, I said, I got the Nintendo, I got the
Up in my
ColecoVision,
van.
I got the Atari, I got the Super Nintendo, I got the Sega, I got the Sega Game Gear, I got everything. And people would just come over and I would just watch people play because sometimes I have just as much fun watching someone else play because like I wasn't necessarily good at a game, so I couldn't get by a level. So you give it to somebody else who's good and you go, I've never seen this level before because I can't get by it. So
That's a exactly like that's so much of the fun of it as far as I've always been concerned. Like have it be like a collaborative thing. My friends Willie and Joey when I was a kid, they were like whiz kids with video games. And if I ever had any problems with anything, I'd be like, I'm just going to go ask Willie and Joey. And then they'd come over and annihilate whatever I was having trouble with in no time flat. And I'd be like, do that again.
Berserk got me through the video game crash. Yeah, that was one of my favorite games on the Atari was Berserk. I always ran into the wall, though. It'd be like, duk, duk, and I'm like, son of a freaking fragger. One time I was house sitting a friend's house and he said, you stay here, watch the plays, just don't have anybody else over. So I invited all my friends over for the night and we played Nintendo. We were playing a game called Kid Nicky. And,
I remember that. Yeah.
And back in the day, you couldn't save Nintendo games. So we got almost to the final boss and we were all tired and we like, I can't stay awake anymore. So we all fell asleep and paused the game. We woke up the next day, overheated. We had to start all over. And I was like, no.
Oh, no. see, I did that with Castlevania.
Yeah.
I played till like early in the morning. And then paused it, went to bed, woke up, and then I was, I had enough energy to finish it. But Tom says, Evil Otto used to scare the crap out of me. And Kristen says, a parent knows where their child is when they're playing, when they're on the game.
I'm on the game, man.
I still have.
You got any more save files, bro?
I still have every system. They're all in storage, but Nintendo, Super Nintendo, I have the Virtual Boy, which makes your eyes bleed. The Sega Game Gear, I have the TV adapter for it. I used to actually watch Star Trek: The Next Generation back in the 90s on the little television adapter. I have the Jaguar. I have the
do the math. That was the worst fucking slogan.
I know. The regular Sega, the Sega Genesis with the 32-bit adapter and the Sega CD adapter.
Nice.
The Dreamcast, the Nintendo 64, the GameCube. Like I say, all those systems I still have, and most of them still work. So, yeah.
Nice. Now, Brandon, you were going to say something earlier?
Oh, yeah. Just talking about, different experiences with certain games and stuff. When I got the Nintendo for my 7th birthday, and that's 1989, so I just made it before the 90s on that one. But my auntie Renee, my auntie Nay, she actually got me specifically. This was my game. Like I was allowed to have the game, but the system was everybody's. Fucking communism. But anyway, she got me The Legend of Zelda, and nice. It was the gold cartridge that she got me, and I was 7. I was living in Charlestown, a very Irish section of Boston, Massachusetts. And then within the next year, we moved to Brockton, Massachusetts. And in all that time, I couldn't make any fucking headway in The Legend of Zelda. It came with a map in the game, so you could see where, not like all the items, but you get an idea of the terrain.
You had to get the Nintendo Power for the map with all
which my parents got me a subscription to Nintendo
Very
Power
cool.
as part of my gift. So I had stacks of Nintendo Power for forever. Well, the thing is, I just couldn't figure it out, though. I had no idea why nothing was where it was supposed to be. I was at a loss. And I made friends with those two kids I had mentioned before, Willie and Joey, or as adults now, Will and Joe. They're still Willie and Joey. And these are guys that I've known for 30 years now. And I remember the day they sat down after they heard me bitch and complain about how I couldn't do shit. I'm still there. I'm like 3 hearts. Like I have no items. And they're like, dude, you just suck. I'm like, no, fuck you. Like, show me what I need to do then. And so they turned on the game. And then the second the file pops up to choose, they go, you're a fucking idiot. And I was like,
I know.
Why am I fucking idiot? What did I do wrong? They were like, you named your file Zelda? And I was like, the name of the game is Zelda. What the hell? Why does that matter? They go, dude, when you type in Zelda and make that your file name from the start of it, it flips the entire map.
Yep.
So nothing, it's the exact opposite side of where it's supposed to be. That's why you haven't been able to find shit. And I was like, what? Like, I've been playing that for a year, and I was like so frustrated. And everyone I knew was like, this game is the best. I'm like, what fucking game are you playing? And of course, like once they showed me that, I erased it and I put in Link instead, because you only have like 6 spaces. And of course, my name is 7 letters long. And Brando, nope, not at that point in time anyway. I did not like that.
I'm gonna make you an offer you can't refuse.
Yeah, for real. I'm gonna save the princess, I could have been somebody. But yeah, I finally I ran through and with their assistance, because they knew it like the back of their hand. Whenever I was stuck, they would kind of guide me. But otherwise, I tore the hell out of that game, and it became one of my all-time favorites from that moment on. But just goes to show you, sometimes you need those other people to sit alongside you to play those games, because they might know something you don't, and it makes it a lot
that's
more
funny you
enjoyable.
say that, because knowledge is power.
Yes, and also snowing is happening. No, wait. Yo, snow. Hey, it's December 1st. I wanted to wear something 80s-ish and wintry.
Yeah. So for those of you watching or listening, if you don't get it, knowing is half the battle was the G.I. Joe slogan,
And now you know. G.I. Joe.
They had the little rainbow, right? The rainbow star.
No. You're thinking of NBC. The more you know.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I actually
Care Bears.
If I could just share my screen with you for a second. This is what's on my desktop. This is what I see across all 3 of my monitors every single day. Right here.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
I have this on a t-shirt, and it's one of my all-time favorite shirts, but I've worn the hell out of it, so I have to put it on sparingly. But yes, I found in life this is the perfect pie chart. Knowing is half the battle, and the other half is split up between 25% red lasers and 25% blue lasers. Completely applicable.
It needs to be set up with a Venn diagram where the whole thing's encompassed with missing the shots.
Nobody's good at hitting things. No one.
Kristen says, "Hey, don't knock Care Bears or My Little Ponies."
I wasn't.
No, who was?
No, it's
Care Bears the movie scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. Just like that face in the book was.
I couldn't bear to watch it.
Boo! Bear to watch it.
My little nieces loved Care Bears and My Little Ponies, and I remember they had Teddy Ruxpin.
Oh my god!
Oh, my friend had a Teddy Ruxpin.
Teddy Ruxpin and Real Talking Bubba.
I wanted a Teddy Ruxpin so badly, and then my friend got a Teddy Ruxpin, and I was envious for about 2 minutes until I actually got to play with the Teddy Ruxpin. I was like, so it just reads and talks? Yeah, I can do that.
Real Talking Bubba was better. I'll tell you, would you stand me on my head? And you turn him on, and he's like, Ernest, knock me in him there. So not only was I there for the, console revolution, but I was there for the arcade revolution, because that was the late 70s, early 80s. And there was a bowling alley in Waterbury that was candlepin bowling, but they also had a few select video games. And if you wanted to play video games, you had to go to this bowling alley. And I remember they had Depth Charge. I can't ever say that. I used to play that all the time. But, Yeah, I mean, I was there for the whole Asteroid, Battle Zone, Missile Command, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, like that whole thing. And then it's like, again, we were talking about this the other day, but it's like you go like this and you're 56 years old and you go, wait a second, I was just riding my bike yesterday trying to get to this arcade with some quarters to play Missile Command, even though I sucked at it, and it's like, how did the time go by so fast? But there was a restaurant that used to have the Tron game, and I ran out of quarters, and I was like, I really want to play. And they were doing construction right next to the restaurant. And when you put electrical outlets, at least in the 80s, they were metal. Now they use plastic wired boxes. But there's the little round circles and the pop outs that they pop the little thing out so you can run the wire through the certain holes. And the little metal ones were the same weight as a quarter. So I went to this construction site and like filled my pockets with these little pop outs and played Tron for like 3 hours on pop outs from these electrical boxes.
Oh my God.
I can only imagine the guy when he went to empty that money and saw all these electrical things in there going,
fucking kids.
So I'm about to say something that's very New England. So when I was a kid, my mom was doing grocery shopping, and obviously she left me in the car, because that's what you do in the 80s.
Yes, indeed. Even into the 90s.
Oh yeah, yeah. So while she was, she would be, because you're doing coupon shopping, she's shopping for a long time. I get bored and get out and wander around the parking lot. There's a Bradley's that was there, and went into Bradley's, and there's this kid in there that I think his mom was like working there, and his mom like flipped a switch on the machine where it was like unlimited tokens. And it was Return of the Jedi. And he played for a little while, and he got bored, and he said, hey, no, you don't got to worry about quarters. So I started playing, and I played like, I think the last thing I remember was my mom came into the store like looking for me, like, where the hell are you?
Right.
Oh my God, that was such an awesome game. I set up MAME so I can replay it, and it's still just an awesome game, because it was you start off the game on a it's like a not a three-dimensional view, but like the Zelda view, but it's
bird's eye.
Yeah, but it's the speeder bikes.
Oh,
and you gotta dodge all these things, and you get to the very end, and it's C-3PO's waiting, and he says, you are now part of the tribe. And then it goes from there to flying the Millennium Falcon and to the Death Star. And oh my God, it was so awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
Did you beat it like that day?
I think I must have. Yeah, I think I did. Yeah.
Yeah, unlimited quarters. I mean, unlimited lives, whatever. Like.
Oh yeah, because it was. I think it's only like 3 levels. Because games were easy back then.
They kind of follow suit with that on Star Wars games in the arcade. Even through the 90s into the early aughts too. I remember that Star Wars trilogy game they had, and it was always 3 levels. You could pick. One from New Hope, one from Empire, one from Jedi. So,
yeah.
It's funny you said you lived in Brockton. That's where my sister's now husband is from Brockton.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say I'm still there,
right?
So I won't.
So Brandon, did you have any favorite arcade games that you played in the 80s?
Favorite arcade games in the 80s?
Yeah.
Jeez. I don't know, man. Burger Time.
Burger Time was a good one.
I enjoyed that one. Arcade games, I didn't get a chance to go to the arcade very often. It was the arcade was at the bowling alley, the lanes in my town, and it was literally across the city, and there was just no way I could go there of my own volition. I would need a ride to make it there. And they're like, hey Dad, drop me off at the bowling alley so I can play a bunch of video games. No. That's how that would go. So instead I had to resign myself to playing whatever video games I either purchased, rented, or borrowed, and reading comic books or watching movies. So that's where my stuff usually fell into. I will say I was a huge Mega Man nerd.
That was a good one.
When I was a kid, and that partially because Like two of my favorite games were the first couple Mega Man games, through the 80s there, and Legend of Zelda, because they were games that you could actually either save or get passcodes for. And for me, I was not allowed to play video games during the week, only on the weekend. So it was kind of a big deal that I'd be able to pick up where I left off the last time I played it, especially because I didn't get a whole lot of practice in between those sessions. So yeah, that, and I think the bane of my existence video game wise. Oh, I did like I love the Turtles arcade game. I was big into that. But at home, the bane of my existence was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for NES. I've never beaten it. I've never made it past defusing all the bombs underneath the fucking water.
That was a tough game.
Yeah, it was. Like, why would you give that to children to play? That's like, there are probably people out there that still have fucking PTSD.
Yeah.
And I think I just found out recently that because it was a Konami game, like, you could use the fucking code. And I was like,
somebody
what?
just mentioned that. Somebody mentioned that back a little ways about the Konami codes.
Oh yeah. I mean, I didn't get a Game Genie for Nintendo because I was not aware of such things at that point in time. But I will say I did eventually get one for Super Nintendo, specifically for Spider-Man and the X-Men. Because that game is an absolute fucking horror show. It should never have been made or released. but yeah, like Metal Gear, that's one that a lot of people love too. That Metal Gear and was it Blaster Master?
Blaster Master was so awesome too. I love Blaster Master because you could like get out of your ship and you had adventures like outside of the ship, then you can get back in it. And Metal Gear, I mean, a game where you had to smoke cigarettes.
Finally.
Yeah.
Philip Morris was like, "Oh, thank God."
I remember the original PlayStation when it came out. I had Rebel Assault 2, and there's this one level where you have to fly the Millennium Falcon, but you have to fly it through these like bars that are like this 1 second and this way the next. So you literally had to go like this with the thing and this, and I'm like, no, I can't do this fast enough. So I tried for like hours and I couldn't get by it. So one day I realized when you beat a level, PlayStation gave you a code, which was like triangle, square, triangle, circle, circle, X or whatever. So you could put that code in and start from that level that you just beat. So I'm like, okay, I got to figure out a code for this. And this was kind of before really. Well, there were some codes online, but not like it is today. So I literally, in all seriousness, grabbed my controller and I don't remember what it is right now, but I was like, X, circle, triangle, square, X or whatever. And I put it in and it accepted it. And I was like, wow, that's weird. And it was the game completion code. And I just haphazardly put it in. And on the first try, got it. So I submitted it.
Nailed it.
I submitted it to some like game cheater thing online, and for a long time it said this code submitted by R.W. Martin or whatever, and I was like, yeah. And so like I was able to now go back and start after the level that I couldn't get by to play the rest of the game. Nice. But it was just weird. It was like, and after I got the right code and it worked, I'm like, how did that? There's no way. So I wrote the code down, and then for like a half an hour typed in all these other codes, and none of them worked. And it just so happened that the first code I put in was it. And to this day, I'm like, whoa, brain, what the
That's
heck?
pretty cool though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, codes were definitely like the lifeblood for a lot of gamers during the 80s, especially if you were playing a Konami game. Yeah. For those of you watching that aren't aware, we're talking about the Konami debugging code that they utilized. And it was up, down, down, left, right, BA, start. And that was most famous with the game Contra. Because I don't know a single fucking person on the face of this planet that could beat that game without that code.
Yeah.
Like, for real. I mean, you basically have a video game where it's Arnold Schwarzenegger's character from Commando and Sylvester Stallone's character from First Blood, and they're fighting against the fucking brood queen, the alien queen, whatever you want to call it, from Alien, in the middle of a fucking rainforest. There you go. That's Contra.
I have the Contra collection on the Xbox, and I played it, I don't know, a couple months back or whatever, and it was like, all right, I can do this. Game over. Okay, I guess not, like it is. It is
Psych.
wicked hard.
Yeah,
So,
it's no
And
joke,
even if
man.
you got two people playing, playing teams, it's still like ridiculous.
Yeah, you're gonna die within a minute of each other. That's how that goes.
I wanted to hop off, video games to another subject, but before I do, so I'm on liketotally80s.com, and they got a list of the 20 top arcade games for the 80s, and I'm just going to run through these. Just after I'm done, let me know if any of them, spark, give you a little twinkle in your heart or whatnot.
Let us know what they mean to you.
Exactly. So number 20, I'm going to do these in order from worst to best. Well, just these are the top 20, so they're all good. Dragon's Lair, Rampage, Tempest, Centipede, Xevious, Donkey Kong Jr., Mario Brothers, the original Mario Brothers, Defender, Frogger, Zaxxon, Pole Position, Star Wars, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Burger Time, Tron, Hubert, Miss Pac-Man, Galaga, and Super Mario Brothers. And I'm going to add another Popeye.
Blows me down. Blows me olive oil.
Yeah, Donkey Kong Jr., man. I loved
yeah.
that fucking game. I loved Donkey Kong Jr. so much more than Donkey Kong. I have to admit. I found that game to be much more fun.
Yeah.
So
wow.
I mean, Tron was my favorite, but I also loved Gorf, and you can't find a Gorf machine anywhere. Like even Fun Spot doesn't have one, and I guess the board is wicked hard to recreate or fix or whatever. But
that's why we got to get you set up on MAME.
Did you remember Gorf at all, Brandon? So
No,
it's like 4 games
like?
in one. First you played like Space Invaders, then you played some other kind of spacey game, then some other spacey game, and then some other spacey game. So it's sort of like Tron had the 4 different things you had to do, and then you come back and you do them again. Gorf was the same way. It had like 4 different games in one or whatever, but it was like, I am Gorf, like it had this robotic voice and stuff, and it had the same kind of control that Tron had. Like
So
GROF? GROF.
I mean GORF Gorf. So like frog backwards?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I've
never heard of it before.
Yeah. Leo's looking for a photo right now.
Yeah, no. I was just going through the list and just some quick memories. Rampage, when you died, you turned naked and walked off screen.
Oh yeah, that was great.
Oh yeah. Defender, you had those the ships that were like abducting people, and you had to save them. And like if you shot down the ship, like when they had a person would like fall and die. Zaxxon, I absolutely loved that. Oh my god, that game! I thought that had the best graphics ever.
And it was weird because it was like your ship was kind of at an angle. It wasn't straight on. It wasn't this way. It was like cockeyed going through the thing or whatever.
Jeremy says the 80s video games brought my love of RPGs as well. RPGs in the 80s on the computer, you had a company TSR making the Dungeons and Dragons games.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, Dungeons and Dragons in and of itself saw a huge resurgence in the 80s. Yeah. So it really makes sense that RPG video games kind of funneled themselves with that same kind of storytelling technique within the confines of that world. I mean, if it weren't for such things, then I already mentioned Legend of Zelda, that wouldn't have existed. There wouldn't have been a real audience for that if there weren't gamers already, kind of champing at the bit to have an RPG that they could play. Yeah. So I mean, RPGs they have had quite the place in video gaming for a long time, and it stands to reason that a lot of the folks who would have, like, maybe you weren't into D&D, maybe you aren't, but if you had been alive in the early to mid 80s and you had not had access to such fun frilly things as these video games, you likely would have been part of a campaign.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really mention computer games, but that's a whole nother thing, early computer games. But I remember playing Leisure Suit Larry.
Oh my god, dude!
Some Apple computer or whatever with the big 5 1/4 or 5.5 inch floppies or whatever.
So, just real quick, the Leisure Suit Larry games were fucking hilarious. especially the copy protection, because it wasn't, turn to page 5. What's word number 3? They would ask like questions that an adult would know. So you actually had to do research, like something about President Nixon or whatever. And it was like these random questions, like, holy shit, that was genius.
Yeah. And then the other thing, my friend had a PC Junior, and we used to play this Star Trek game, which was basically a green grid, and you'd have to like figure out the coordinates to get from point A to point B. And each round you'd only have like a certain amount of moves you could do. And then the Klingons or Romulans or whatever would move towards you. And you'd have to figure out, are you going to move or try to shoot? And it was all like, that old school, like 10 equals X plus Y equals 50 kind of shit or whatever. But yeah, that was fun to play.
Kristen says, gotta go. Have fun reminiscing. D&D was my oldest son's favorite.
I still have all my original D&D stuff from the 80s. My basic, my advanced, my expert, my dice, my modules, everything from way back then. But again, that's a whole nother story.
There's so much of the 80s. I'm sure we'll have to maybe do another show about it, because we're barely even touching well, where do you want to go to next? Because it's some of the things I put down, obviously video games at home, arcades, TV shows, movies, music, toys, cards like Garbage Pail Kids, Saturday morning cartoons. What strikes your fancy?
As I was talking to you the other day, and you mentioned Garbage Pail Kids, I collected the wacky packages back in the 70s. Those were my thing. And like, if I'd get...
How about the 80s? What did you do in the 80s? Fuck the 70s.
No, the 70s were it, man. But
yeah, but the 70s are not it as the subject of tonight's show.
I know. Well, wacky packages were around in the 80s as well.
Brandon, did you do anything with Garbage Pail Kids at all?
Yeah, I mean, I had some of the cards and stuff like that growing up as a kid. I remember seeing the movie when I was a kid.
I never saw the movie.
Don't. It's so fucking bad. It is what the Spanish would refer to as el terrible. Like, I remember seeing it as a child, and I only saw it once and thought it was like, the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then as an adult, a friend of mine obtained a copy of it, and then we put it on. We got part of the way through it, and then
Okay, Batman.
Seeing
if it worked, and it did.
It did.
It was Batman. I was like, will this thing pick it up?
But I finally saw the movie as a teenager, and it is horrendous. It is so fucking bad. If you like the cards, you like the concept of Garbage Pail Kids, don't ever watch the movie. Do not. It's not worth your time. It really isn't.
Well,
but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was into like, just cartoons and movies and stuff for the most part. I mean, Monster Squad was my big thing as a kid. And for me, I know a lot of people have a soft spot in their heart for the Goonies, which like I don't mind the Goonies, but I remember as a little kid watching it and thinking, like, actually pondering aloud, saying like, so this is just like Indiana Jones if it was a bunch of kids. Oh, okay. But then when I saw the Monster Squad, it was like somebody flipped a switch. I was like, what is this? I remember the day I watched it, it was like rainy and dark outside, and so I couldn't go out to play. We had just gone to the movie rental store the night before, and so my dad was like, you know what, you can put it in now. You don't have to worry about later tonight for movie night. You can watch your movie now. And I put Monster Squad on in the middle of the day, and it blew my fucking mind. And I was just like, I was hooked from that moment on. Like, I had already dabbled in horror thanks to my dad because of all of his love of the, the 50s and 60s stuff, especially like Vincent Price and what have you. But Oh man, for me that was like my true introduction to 80s movie horror. And for a kid that's pretty good considering, it's all universal monsters that they slightly tweaked to have in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I mean Garfield and Friends, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on Saturday mornings on CBS. I can't even think about anything else that was on in the 80s specifically at the moment. I'm racking my brain, but there's too much. It's choking up the pathway.
So
But
back
yeah.
in the 70s,
Of course. Why the fuck not?
no, but I mean, I was lucky again, 70s and 80s. You got up on Saturday morning at 6 o'clock in the morning just so you could watch cartoons for 6 hours before your dad took over the TV
To watch bowling or golf
or curling.
Oh God.
Or ABC's Wide World of Sports, The Agony of Defeat, or whatever it was.
Wide world of sports.
Yeah. Oh, Snorks. Yep, Snorks and Smurfs. I believe that was 80s, maybe. G.I. Joe and Transformers, but that was in the afternoon. It wasn't Saturday morning cartoons. But I mean, I think I was probably
Muppet Babies. I remember that one.
Muppet Baby. Yeah. Let's
She
see.
did that too well.
I think Thundar the Barbarian was probably it might have been the 80s. Yeah.
So 80 to 81, the fall schedule. I'm not going to name all of them, but starting at 8 a.m. Super Friends, the new
Meanwhile, back at the Hall of Justice.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
The New Adventures of Mighty Mouse and Heckle and Jekyll.
Yes.
Love that. Godzilla Dynamite Hour. Bugs Bunny Roadrunner Show. Fonz and Happy Days Gang.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
How many spin-offs did that one show make?
Dude, okay. The 80s was prime for like oddball cartoons because the A-Team had their own cartoon. Happy Days had its own cartoon. Alf had its own cartoon.
That's how we learned about his real name was the cartoon.
Oh,
They
yeah.
never said that his name was Gordon Shumway from Melmac.
Yeah.
They just said he was from Melmac. Ha! Kill me. Like, that we got so much because the whole cartoon was him on Melmac.
Yeah.
So we never heard anybody ever call him Alf on the show. So it was very strange, but I loved it. I mean, I remember watching it for sure.
Yeah. There was, I remember a wrestling one, Karate Kid.
Yeah, the wrestling one where they actually like pitted the wrestlers again, like they were teams. It was always like kind of good guys and bad guys. And I know Sergeant Slaughter, was he? Can't remember if he was a good guy or a bad guy.
I remember Sergeant Slaughter was on G.I. Joe.
Oh, sorry. Was he?
Yeah.
And like the wrestling one, I think they like solved crimes or something like that.
Oh God! So it's like the Mike Tyson's Mysteries, but took itself seriously.
Yeah, but it was like Hulk Hogan and Roddy
Junkyard Doug, Roddy Piper. God. The 80s.
And then you had a bunch of video game cartoons. There was a Donkey Kong.
Captain N and the Nintendo team.
Oh, even before that, Pac-Man had a cartoon.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Donkey Kong. I think Pole Position had one. There was a bunch of weird ones. Jeremy says Jimmy Superfly.
Yeah, all these cartoons lasted one episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Canceled by the end of the beginning credits.
We hope you've enjoyed this Pac-Man special. It's the only one you'll ever see.
Sorry, we hate to interrupt your programming, but we now bring you to the rest of an episode of CBS Storybook Hour. Why? Pac-Man's been canceled. Actually, I loved CBS Storybook Hour. And, what was it? The dude that was Captain Kangaroo was the host of it.
Bob Keeshan?
Yeah, he was, and that was like one of the very first things they had on CBS in the morning on Saturdays. That's how I discovered like certain stories. Like as a kid, there was an author named Bruce Coville, and he did a book called The Monster's Ring, and that's what they did on CBS Storybook. And because of that, I found some other books he did, like sci-fi books when I was a kid, called My Teacher is an Alien, and that was like my full-blown like introduction to science fiction as a youngin as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, when Bob Keeshan was alive, he actually lived like about 35 minutes, 40 minutes from where I live now, not too far away. So he lived in Norwich, Vermont.
Nice. No kidding.
Just real quick, fall of 1984 on CBS Saturday mornings. It had Saturday Supercade, Pole Position, Dungeons and Dragons,
Yeah.
and Pryor's Place.
Oh, right. Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
Okay. Never heard of it.
Did obviously you guys probably did remember to Choose Your Own Adventure books?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Did
I
you
have a bunch of them still.
Did you ever read the one that like didn't have an ending?
No.
I don't think so.
It was like they miswrote it, and there was no way to finish the book.
Just circular logic the entire time.
Exactly. That drove me fucking bonkers.
There was a bookstore in Waterbury, Vermont in the 80s. There we go. It was called the Garland Bookstore, and it opened up, and I went in one day to kind of look around, and ended up getting, some Hardy Boy, Nancy Drew mysteries or whatever. And then the Choose Your Own Adventures came out in I think it was 81, if I'm remembering back far enough. And the guy who created it lived in, I think, like Waitsfield, Vermont or whatever. So he came in a bunch of times and did book signings and stuff. So I got a couple signed by him. And then there was a guy whose name was Red Goodman, who lived in Waterbury and was a writer on those as well. And he would come to the bookstore and do signings or whatever. So I have like the first 10, they did these little box sets. So you got 1 through 5 in a nice little cardboard box set, and then 6 through 10 in another one. So I still have those and a few sporadic ones, but I tried writing one once, and I'll tell you, it is like ridiculously hard to keep up to what you're doing.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff, just a heads up, we're talking about 80s. If you want to think back, if you had any favorite arcade games or cartoons you watched in the 80s, any favorite TV shows, whatnot. Jeremy says, hold on, RW, you're the guy who reads the Hardy Boys?
I used to back in the 80s. Good old Chip and Frank and Joe.
Shit, even I read Hardy Boys novels. Like Hardy Boys mysteries were for kids who weren't that smart, and Nancy Drew mysteries were for kids who were.
And I think I heard somewhere, and I've never fact checked this, but the guy who wrote the Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, the Hardy Boys also wrote Nancy Drew, but neither one of those were their real names. So the person writing them all used one name for writing the Nancy Drew and another name for writing the Hardy Boys. I heard that a long time ago, but if that's true, that's a lot of books.
Oh, you know what? We're talking about like mysteries and stuff like that. In the 80s, at least for me, Encyclopedia Brown, I got really into, and that the reason I say 80s is because I know that Encyclopedia Brown as a character predates the 80s, but there was a show that was on HBO. It was one of the few things that was on HBO that wasn't fucking Beastmaster at that point in time. And it was go fuck yourself, Hef. And yeah, I watched this show on HBO, and I became like completely enamored of the idea of this kid, Leroy
Fragile Rock
Brown. Dude, Fraggle Rock. I mean, listen, I understand that there are some people out there that have like, they really love Fraggle Rock. My wife has a turtle that she got well before we were together that she named Doozer after the Doozers that made things out of the radish crystals in Fraggle Rock. And she hadn't seen it since she was a kid, but she had fond memories of it, and I did too. And then we were able to actually like check out the show. Like we rented it like from Netflix when we were still getting DVDs, and we put it in, and we were like, all right, Fraggle Rock, and we started watching it, and I was like, this is terrible. I could not get into it at all. And I love Jim Henson. Like I love the Muppets and stuff. And I honestly, like, I did not have full blown nostalgia lenses on. And we sat there, and after one episode, I was like, I'm not watching any more of this. I'm good. And she was like, yeah, that's fine. I was like, but one thing that was really cool was like, oh, look, The old man at the beginning with the Muppet dog is the fucking bartender with Tourette's in the Boondock Saints.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
Yeah, fuck us. I'm like, oh, he used to hang out with Muppets.
I know.
Jeff says his Fraggle Rock. Jeff said his favorite game is Galaga. And Jeremy says, yeah, well, I'm not rewatching He-Man anytime soon, but you can't tell me it isn't the best show of the 80s.
Oh, I absolutely can. It is not the best show of the 80s.
Yeah.
I'm doing it right now. Because I went to rewatch it recently in preparation for He-Man Revelation, and no thank you. Just no fucking way. Like, the concept is much better than the execution.
Well, so that brings up another subject, and I know we're just scratching the surface, so we'll have to do additional specials. Maybe focus on toys of the 80s. Jeremy says, "Lies, you heathen."
Nope, facts. Hashtag facts. Listen, when's the last time you watched it, Jeremy? Because it sounds to me like you have those nostalgia lenses on that I was just talking about. Because if you haven't seen it in a while, I'm telling you, go back to revisit it. It's not that good. And I loved He-Man as a child. Absolutely went bonkers for anything He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And like I said, I recently turned on Hulu, and they have the entirety of the series there. And I started right there in episode 1, and I made it a few episodes in, and it was torture. It was absolutely abysmal how bad that show was.
Jeremy says that's exactly what I'm saying, but it's still my
Listen,
favorite.
No, but that's the thing, Jeremy. It's okay that it's your favorite. You were not saying it was your favorite, though. You were saying it's the best cartoon. There's a difference. I'm glad that it's your favorite. That's awesome. But it is. I'm saying, like, as an adult, watch it. It's not that good. Like I said, I love the concept of He-Man. I absolutely adore the ideas of that whole thing, but the execution by Filmation, it's not good. It really isn't. And Leo and Patsy the Angry Nerd both tried to fucking warn me before Revelation came out. Because I was like, I'm gonna watch a bunch of He-Man. And they were dead serious. You were like, don't do it. I was like, they're like, no, don't. It will ruin it. I was like, will it? Will it though? And yeah, they were right. I stopped after a few. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'll just enjoy Revelation for what it is.
Well, I mean, I think
just real quick.
Can be said. Oh, go ahead, Leo.
Just to catch up on the comments, just real quick. Jeremy says, I own all, tried to watch it with my kids, and I left a room.
Yeah, see?
But it's still the best show ever. Jeff says D&D was big too. Dungeon Masters rule. And Tom says Voltron was my first introduction to anime. Go RW.
I was just going to say that, sometimes we remember something as a kid because you're a kid and you're like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. And then you try to revisit it as an adult. And as an adult, your mindset is different. So then you pick it apart and go, well, this doesn't make sense. And this is kind of stupid. And you pull it apart more. I try not to do that because it's my childhood.
You're a lot nicer to yourself in those situations than I am.
What's that?
You're a lot nicer to yourself in those situations than I am to me, because I do that and I'm like, wow, little me was fucking stupid.
Yeah.
That's really like, wow, I was just entertained by anything at that moment in time, huh? Good stuff.
So when I was growing up, we got CBS, NBC, and ABC, and CBS was the strongest. NBC was barely okay, and ABC was like twist the rabbit ears in every possible direction and try to get it in. But we also would get a couple stations from Canada. So we'd get Channel 12 and Channel 6 from Canada. And there was a show on Canada TV called The Edison Twins.
Well, before you get into that, just to for education purposes for those younger viewers, we didn't have cable growing up. We had to get our TV over the airwaves. So when you're watching TV, you had
airwaves is like Wi-Fi, but for your television.
Exactly. And we could only get in a couple channels, and a lot of times you're watching something and it's all fuzzy because it's barely coming in. Sorry, just wanted to.
So you either had an antenna on your roof if you were really rich, or didn't live in an apartment building where the landlord said, no, you're not putting an antenna on my house. Or you had to use these things called rabbit ears that sat on your TV, and you could turn the whole thing, and you had antennas that you could move this way and that way, and a little button that turned some frequency thing or something or whatever.
Tin foil on. I'm trying to get them to get more.
Tinfoil and coat hangers.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
You extend the antenna out towards the window with a combination of the two.
So it was a show called the Edison Twins out of Canada. I used to watch it all the time, along with this other show out of Canada called The Beachcombers. So recently I found them on something like, Crackle or somewhere that they were free. And I'm like, oh my God, Tracy, the Edison Twins. I used to watch this all the time. You got to watch this with me. And the whole time she was watching, she was like this. Is this almost over? And I'm like, no, isn't this awesome? She's like, not really. And so then we watched the Beachcombers, and I go, dude, my dad and I watched this together. I love this show. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy, I remember him. Oh my God, I remember her. I remember him. And then again, she's like, do I ever have to watch another one of these or whatever?
Like, so, I filled my quota, right?
Yeah. So your memory as a kid sometimes is like, oh my God, I was 18 and I was a moron, and this is the greatest show ever. And now you're 56 and you're like, yeah, I was a moron.
Yeah.
This show isn't that great. But I think sometimes that happens,
It does. And, this is a perfect thing for companies to exploit. Jeff says 13 channels and of shit to choose from. And
13 if you were lucky.
Yeah, 13 if you're lucky.
And Jeremy says, or you went to your rich friend's house. So Hasbro, I was a Transformers kid growing up, and my friends, the cool kids, had He-Man. I wish I had He-Man, but I had Star Wars, and then went into Transformers. And it's I tried looking at some of the Transformers when I was a kid, and they're like, it's like, thinking back then they were so cool, but now they're like so stiff and just like, they're barely a robot. It's like two blocks coming down. It's supposed to be arms, a flat block is like a face or something like that. Yeah. So the new Transformers now, though, it's they're tackling the original Transformers, but it's what we remember. It's as cool as we thought they were. And I'll pull some.
I like that. It's as cool as we thought.
I know, but I mean, just the quality. And yeah, I mean, it's it's hard to explain because I
roll out.
So when did Transformers and G.I. Joe hit the airways? Was it 83 or 85? Because if it was 83, I was 18. If it was 85, I was 20. And here's an 18, 20-year-old kid that I think it was on every day at like 4 to 4:30 and then 4:30 to 5 or something like that. It was like the G.I. Joe Transformer block. It was on like an hours during the day.
1984.
Okay, so it was 19. So it's 19. Here's a 19-year-old kid that's like, Mom, I have to watch Transformer. Like, G.I. Joe's coming on. I don't want to mow the lawn. Like, literally, I love those two shows. And it was wild that they were on at like 4 and 4:30, every day or whatever it was. So, yeah, I mean, I absolutely love both of those. But I think I liked G.I. Joe better than Transformers.
Yeah, G.I. Joe was 83.
Yeah, so I think I like that one better than Transformers, although I watched them both.
Yeah.
Spike was always
getting into trouble. What about Thundercats? Did you watch Thundercats at all?
I loved Thundercats.
Yeah. Thundercats. Ho! I mean, how could you not love the story of young Prince Lion-O, who is now an 11-year-old boy in the body of a 35-year-old man? They kind of fucking forgot writing that into the story after the first few episodes, huh, gang? Like, people seem to forget that tiny little tidbit about the entire story is that when they left Thundera, they were in cryogenic chambers, and Lion-O was the same age as Wily Kit and Wily Cat, but his chamber got cracked, and he aged slightly as they were going, and when they opened it up, he was a fully grown man with that deep voice. I played with Barbie something, Jeff.
Oh, God.
But yeah, like they tend to forget that he was a man child. He was this young kid in this like powerful body, and he was now like the ruler of the Thundercats, and they kind of just brushed that off real fast. I don't know why, because it's definitely interesting, and it's certainly a play on like that whole idea of something like Shazam, Captain Marvel, where it's like that power fantasy of the young boy being able to like become this hero, only he could never turn it off.
You know what I gotta say about that? Snarf, snarf.
Snarf, 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 snarf.
I remember one time when Mum-Ra had the mutants kidnap Snarf, and it was one of the few times where you forget like how important Snarf was to Lionel. Like he's his nanny, and like it's one of the last times like that boy child kind of thing comes through, and just all gruff and ready to fight. Lionel's just like, I swear by Jaga's beard, if they harm one hair on Snarf's head, I'll tear them all apart. Like, all right, dude, chill, man. I don't know why you're a bunch of cats that have like a fucking cat as a pet, but sure, whatever, man. Why
I
not?
never had the airplane, but I had a bunch of the tanks and a bunch of the figures and all kinds of other stuff. I had like I don't know what it was called, but it looked like an oil rig thing almost.
Was it an oil rig?
No. Yeah, thanks. But I had a whole bunch of stuff, and then most of it got smashed up because we moved like 47 times, and it got cracked or broken, so it got tossed in the trash.
So this is Hasbro Pulse, and this is the site where they go, hey, do you grew up in the 80s? We're going to take all your money and give you your childhood back. So,
so they're redoing them toys?
Yeah. So
remember Sky Striker? I remember Sky Striker. Yeah, I remember G.I. Joe.
So yeah, it's a brand new one. Super high quality detail for $229.
Only? Oh, buy 3.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. 229.
Knowing this is a ripoff is half the battle.
Rancor from Star Wars. $350.
Only,
yeah.
$350.
That's not even a Lego.
Not even a statue or anything.
No.
It's like a fucking toy.
They're doing a new Voltron also.
And that'll only run you what, $700?
Let me see.
Yeah, I still have my my $6 million man, Oscar Goldman, and Maskatron. They're in pretty darn good shape.
My brother Chris had all of the Ghostbusters toys when we were kids. I was right, $700 fucking dollars.
Yep.
Look at me. Holy shit.
Yeah, but look at the detail of this.
$700.
But look at the detail.
But
$12 to make.
$700.
Okay. But it's 15 inches tall.
Okay, but it's $700. That's gonna be my retort to every detail you talk about.
Look at the detail.
Yes, but look at the price tag. It's $700. That's bonkers, man. That's cuckoo banana pants. Does it break down into the individual components?
It does, yeah.
Oh, I mean, that doesn't change my opinion. It's still $700. That's nuts. Jesus Christ. No way, man. That thing better fucking take itself apart and put itself back together for $700.
But it's these companies definitely. Well, actually, it looks like there's one for $350.
Ooh,
wow!
Oh, half the price. Is it half
the size?
Oh, sorry, $399. $399.
It's only 4 inches.
No, this one's 16 inches.
What the fuck? It's bigger?
It's bigger. It's a different company. It's not as detailed. Yeah. Well, I mean, it still looks really cool.
Made in a country no one's discovered yet.
Yeah.
The undiscovered country.
$400, it's
Yeah, it's a steal from the consumers. They're weaponizing everybody's nostalgia. That's what's happening here.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay. RW, hold up your viewfinders now. Jeff just said classic was the viewfinder. Show Batman to the kiddies again.
Well, this one's Roscoe.
Oh, yep, that's Roscoe. Yep, I see him. That doofus.
And let's see, the Batman one I think was this one.
Up, a little more. Up, there it is.
There we go.
And then we got He-Man on this one.
Oh, a little bit more. Can barely make it out. Oh, there we go.
Ha ha! Take that, you feckless boob.
Well, I know we are running late. We should wrap things up, but we definitely want to cover more 80s in the future. Any last thoughts before we wrap it up? What like was there anything that we missed that was so glaringly personal to you in the 80s that was it a certain movie you saw or remember a certain show that you just brings you back to the 80s and said, when we thought times were good,
There were two shows for me. One was called Out of This World. It was about a young girl who was turns out she's half alien, and she finds out on her 13th birthday. And when the way she finds out is she feels compelled to bring her two pointer fingertips together, and when she does so, time stops, and she spends the entire pilot episode freaking out because everyone is frozen around her. But when she goes to her mom and touches her mom unfreezes, and she realizes anybody she touches will unfreeze, but she doesn't understand how to get everything back to normal. And that's when she finds out that her father was actually an alien. Her father speaks to her through a cube that he left because he had to go back to his home planet. And her father was actually voiced by Burt Reynolds, who went uncredited in the show. And then she feels compelled at the end of the episode to put both of her palms together. And when she does that, time starts back up again. So she realizes she has this power. And that's what the whole series is from that point on. I loved it. I adored the show. Maureen Flanagan was the name of the actress that played Evie, the main character. It was just a lot of fun. And the other show that I loved watching every Sunday on this is a very Boston thing, TV 38 was yep, that's it right there. The girl right there with Maureen Flanagan. Oh, that girl right there. She was in Cloak and Dagger.
I remember that.
Yep, she was the friend in Cloak and Dagger.
But Dabney Coleman.
Dabney Coleman, yes, I love that flick. I love that movie so much. And then
I remember the show.
Yep, and the mother, I can't remember her real name, but she was in Saturday Night Fever with John Travolta. That was a fun show. They had Doug McClure was one of the people in it. He played the mayor of the town that they lived in. It was pretty cool. Mayor Applegate. Mayor Applegate. And the other show that I was really into as a kid, watched every Sunday before we went to church, before we went to mass, was My Secret Identity.
Yes.
Starring Jerry O'Connell. And it was a few seasons long. It was very much like what if a kid got superpowers and kind of decided he wanted to be like Superboy. He called himself Ultraman for like the first season. It was pretty funny. And I'm actually kind of bummed that to this day, like My Secret Identity, you can't find it anywhere. It's not on DVD, nothing. But that was actually one of the things I knew Jerry O'Connell from initially. It blew my mind as a kid to see that show because I didn't see Stand By Me until after I had seen that show, and to see him as the chubby kid in that movie, like it just yes. And it had a full blown theme song and everything. I mean, Out of This World did too, but it was just a play on Swinging on a Star by Bing Crosby.
So if I remember correctly, My Secret Identity was on a brand new station at the time. We thought it'd never go anywhere. Off Fox.
Was it on Fox?
I'm pretty sure it was Fox when it first started out, because that was also the same channel that Married with Children was on.
Yeah, Married with Children and Parker Lewis Can't Lose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see. I remember watching it on Sunday mornings on TV 38. which ended up in the Boston area becoming eventually UPN. But yeah, I loved that. I loved that show so much. And yeah, just I haven't seen it since I was a kid. It might not be that good, and that's fine. Because I mean it was right in the vein of like super powered like youngster kind of stuff that I was super into at the time. I mean, like I was into like the Adventures of Superboy and slash Superboy at that point in time too, which was like straight on syndication. Small Wonder is a show that I am very surprised. It was Jeremy that just said Small Wonder.
Tom Morris. Tom Morris.
Oh, Tom. Sorry. Small Wonder is a show I am very surprised that they have not tried to like remake nowadays.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, like remake it and make it better because I remember thinking that the show was like cute, and then I checked it out, and it's like it's not that great. I feel like they probably were under the gun quite a bit. It gets kind of chintzy towards the end of that run. it's a little dicey quality wise, but yeah, those two shows, when I think of them, like I instantly think about when I was a kid watching My Secret Identity or Out of This World. I adored them.
Mama's Family. And Jeremy said, Howard the Duck made me a perverted geek I am today. And what I have to say to that is I'm sure many furries were born that day.
Well, I mean, Jeremy didn't say he was a furry, so let's like, hey, listen, if Leia fucking making out with her brother didn't do it to you in Empire Strikes Back, once we retroactively found out about that shit in Jedi, then I guess, yeah, George Lucas was really going to hammer the point home with Howard the Duck. He was like, what? They weren't even affected by the incest in those movies? Fine. I'm going to go interspecies on their asses.
That was what, Leia Thompson with Howard?
Leia Thompson.
Yeah, Leia
Howard,
Thompson
man.
had got me kicked off set in 1987 while filming The Wizard of Loneliness, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah. You should have been taking fucking photos of her, bro.
Oh my God. Hawkeye. What up, bro?
What up, bro?
Bro.
Bro.
You guys watching Hawkeye?
Yeah, I did, yes.
Yeah.
I love Alan Alda.
Oh, jeez. Another good show from the 80s, MASH.
Yeah.
RW, to close us up, was there any shows or anything from the 80s we did not touch that is really fond to your heart? That
Well, I mean, there's a billion of them, and I won't talk about them, I'll just say them, but there were two shows that didn't have a very big run. One of them was Wizards and Warriors with Jeff Conaway that didn't, and my God, I can't think of his name. And then Walter Olkowitz, there we go. And then there was one called Otherworld, which starred Jonathan Banks, where this family goes into this pyramid and ends up in an alternate universe. That one was good, but it only lasted like 8 episodes. So Otherworld and Wizards and Warriors was good. I remember watching Tales of the Gold Monkey, which I thought was awesome. Again, my go-to is Glenn A. Larson. Everything he did, I watched, from Battlestar Galactica to BJ and the Bear to The Fall Guy to Knight Rider. I mean, I watched Magnum PI, I watched Simon and Simon. There were so many good shows in the 80s. I'm probably forgetting some of them, but two of them that I, like I say, got hooked on was Otherworld and Wizards and Warriors, but they only lasted a few episodes or whatever. But they're just, without having this list in front of me, there's so many stuff. But yeah, MASH. I mean, I think MASH started in the 70s and ended in the 80s, but
it lasted longer than the fucking Korean conflict.
I know, that's the funniest thing. Yeah. There was a lot of good shows on in the 80s and movies that we didn't even touch on as well. I mean, and again, 70s, 80s, because it started in the 70s and went through the 80s. And then you woke up one morning and you're like, what happened to television? What happened to movies and stuff, And I think as much as you were kind of on the fence on 8-bit, it to me brought us back to like the 80s style movies or whatever. And I wish, I wish filmmakers would do less CGI and, start filming more things that were like the 80s, because now everybody's like us are retroing 80s and talking about, oh my God, what was cool in the 80s. So why don't we start making movies the way we did then, to kind of give us some nostalgia or whatever. But yeah.
I'm gonna list 2 shows. Parker Lewis Can't Lose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh,
And how the hell that beat out Ferris Bueller's Day Off show.
oh, you mean Ferris Bueller?
Yeah, Ferris Bueller. Yeah, Ferris.
I remember when the movie Leprechaun came out, okay? And when it came out, I was like, isn't that the girl that played Jeannie in the Ferris Bueller show on NBC? And nobody knew what the fuck I was talking about. No one. I mean, and the thing is, like, when she was on Ferris Bueller, it was before she got her nose job, Jennifer Aniston. So
Yep.
she was definitely a good pick for the TV version of his sister Jeannie. But you know what? I think it had to do with Charlie Schlatter.
Yeah.
You know, Ferris Bueller was so fully inhabited by Matthew Broderick in the movie that there was nothing that anybody, least of all Charlie Schlatter, could have done to fill those shoes. And it sucks because, like, I remember him being in the movie 18 again with George Burns in the 80s, and that was a fun, cute movie. Like, he really did a good job playing like this George Burns character stuck in his grandson's body. And I mean, it had red buttons in it as George Burns' best friend. I mean, what's not to love? And he was very charismatic in it. But then you put him in Ferris Bueller on NBC, and like they didn't know where to go with it. You know, like it works for a movie. I think to have a kid like pulling all this random antic bullshit, but to try to make a series out of it, they just didn't understand it. Whereas Parker Lewis Can't Lose, instead of it focusing solely on Parker, he had a crew, like a full-blown crew. You know, I myself, like I had Jerry's coat. I was the one with Jerry's coat in high school. If you needed it, I had it in my pocket. And I actually have said the term synchronized swatches more times in my fucking life than I could ever possibly count. And I can probably count on one hand the number of people that understand that reference that I'm not related to. I love that show. So I'm right there with you, bud.
You mentioned George Burns, Oh God.
Oh God, you devil, and oh God,
Yeah.
too.
John Denver, George Burns, Carl Reiner. Yeah.
I always like Charlie Schlatter, or however you say his name, because I probably butcher it like everyone else does. But he was in Heartbreak Hotel, which was a fictitious story about Elvis or whatever, and I saw him in that. And then later on, he was in Diagnosis Murder, which I enjoyed a lot. I liked him in there. But yeah, I always liked him as an actor. And
yeah, he got a raw deal with Ferris Bueller. That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
I think he was a talented actor. He had great delivery. He was really funny. He was talented, and he probably still is talented. You know, he is talented. But NBC, they were just trying to churn something out. I don't think they really cared about the quality.
Well, it's like Jeff Bridges started the movie Starman, and then they made a series with Robert Hayes from Airplane. And Robert Hayes is a good actor, but it's the only thing that I've ever seen that turned into a TV show from a movie, and they had to change obviously the lead character, was Stargate. I'm a big Kurt Russell fan. And when Stargate SG-1 came on, I said, I'm not watching this. Kurt Russell's not in it. It's stupid. And then I started watching it. Somehow I got a season, and I'm like, hey, this is a damn good show. And I mean, it lasted 8 seasons with Richard Dean Anderson before he said, there's nothing left for me to do. I'm taking off. And then they had, 5 different spin-offs of it or whatever. But
see, it's funny because I actually didn't see that show until it was done on Showtime initially. And because it was Showtime, that means it was owned by Viacom, and Viacom was heavy into syndication. So after a couple of years, they started pumping it out on, daytime television on the weekends. So that's how I saw Stargate SG-1 all the time. And I was like, oh, this show, much like you, I was like, oh, this show is actually pretty good. And then once I saw like the formulaic, which is not a problem, but I saw the formulaic layout of it, I was like, oh, I get it. This is the poor man's Fantastic Four. Like that's what Stargate SG-1 was. I mean, you have Richard Dean Anderson as Reed Richards, essentially. I mean, right down to like the silver hair on the sides and everything. Then you have the doctor who was supposed to be like Sue Storm, the linguist who's supposed to be like Johnny Storm, and then the dude from the Goa'uld who was clearly supposed to be just like Ben Grimm.
Gaul, yeah.
Goa'uld.
Christopher Judge, yeah.
Yeah, and he and Michael Shanks are like best friends in real life too.
Yeah.
It's fucking awesome.
And what's funny is when MacGyver was on the air, Christopher Judge did an episode of MacGyver and then worked with him on Stargate, and Richard Dean Anderson's like, I don't remember working with you on MacGyver. But it's hard.
I was doing a lot
It's
of
like,
coke then.
it's like, let's say that just, God forbid, someday our main man Jeff Bridges passes away and they decide to do a Lebowski movie. No one can be the Big Lebowski, so they'll get somebody that looks like him, but it won't be him, and no one will like it because the shoes are way too big to fill. And Matthew Broderick was Ferris Bueller, so you can't just say this guy's now Ferris Bueller. It doesn't work, and I don't know. Just some people can't be replaced in a role.
That's just like your opinion, man.
What?
I'm quoting the Big Lebowski. That's just like your opinion, man.
Right. I mean, Back to the Future, they had what's her face, who was his girlfriend, and I can't think of her name right now. And then she had to go take care of her grandmother. So then they brought in
Claudia Wells.
Yes, thank you. And then they had to bring in Elizabeth Shue or whatever to fill in her shoes, and no one really noticed that for some reason.
That's because Elizabeth Shue, and this is what I call her in the 80s. Elizabeth Shue was America's girlfriend. I mean, like every movie she was in, she was like the girl next door girlfriend, for crying out loud. Even in Adventures of Babysitting, she was
a great movie.
I love that movie. Yeah,
she was the girl next door type that the kid had a crush on. It's just, I mean, Karate Kid, the Back to the Future movies, Adventures of Babysitting, that cements it right there.
Yeah.
So should we put Adventures in Babysitting in the MCU universe?
Oh, because of Thor?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, because of Vincent, however you say his last
D'Onofrio.
name. Yeah, I mean, that was so cool to see him, in that role, with the white blonde wig or whatever. But yeah, that was a great movie. I love how the guy goes, "Don't fuck with the Lords of Death," and she goes, "Don't fuck with the babysitter." I like, nobody get out of here without singing the blues. My name is Chris Parker, and I'm from and she's stuck babysitting these guys. But yeah, it's one of those movies that's like, it just was a good movie,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't, like I said, I don't think nobody really realized when they saw the next movie that it was a different person.
Yeah. Amazing Stories.
Oh, I meant to say that. Yeah. I have the first season. I loved that show.
They remade it recently. It wasn't half bad.
But it wasn't half good either. Sorry.
The other thing, and I know we got to wrap things up. The other thing that meant a lot to me in the 80s, and I put it in the graphic here, the Lamborghini. Oh my God, the Countach LP 5000S. Holy shit. My mom would get me like Road and Track magazine. I'd like read all the specs about the Lamborghini, and oh my God, such I saw one in real life, and I was like, as a kid, as a teenager, and I always wanted one, but obviously that will never happen. But you guys fans of the Lamborghini?
Yeah, so I had two postcards that were a white Lamborghini with black interior, the Lamborghini Countach, and yeah, it had to be somewhere from the 80s, and they've changed the style a little bit. So I'm an 80s Lamborghini, but yeah, I love the look of that car. The only thing I like more would be the Lotus from The Spy Who Loved Me. For some reason, I just love the look of that car.
Wow. See, what about you, Brandon?
I'm not much of a car guy at all. But
he rides a bike.
No, I mean, like, I know how to stay on top of like the maintenance and stuff for my vehicles. I know how to review and look up things. I know what it is I need to focus on, but I'm not like a car guy per se. If there were cars in the 80s, if you wanted to ask me in the 80s, like, oh, what cars did you care about? I'd be like, Kit and the Batmobile. Like, that's what I got. I can't really name anything. Oh, maybe a DeLorean. Yeah. But I've never really been. I couldn't name anything in particular for cars. Like, Brandon, any car that you've ever been super into? Like, one that drives and won't break down. That's what I got. I got.
Well,
I'm just. It's not my bag.
Well, the 80s definitely had some iconic cars, obviously Kit, and you got one behind you there, the Ghostbusters, the Cadillac there.
Yep.
And there was a TV show, Hardcastle and McCormick, with the McLaren.
Yep.
Oh my God.
I haven't even thought about
it didn't start really with generally from the 70s, but once that got famous, then they're like, we got, people watch this show for the car. What can we work? Nash Bridges had the Cuda, and every Magnum PI had the Ferrari. Simon & Simon had that beat up Dodge Ram truck. Fall Guy had that GMC truck.
The A-Team had their van.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everything was pumping out, some kind of vehicle. Also, you get a sponsorship, we're like, hey, we're doing a TV show. What can you give us? And they're like, we'll give you, these cars. And if you wreck one, we'll give you another one. So it was a, race to see who could give them the better car. And the Plymouth Furies in the 70s and 80s were the cars that everybody used in every cop, and they must have wrecked, thousands of these cars in these TV shows. But people would be like, we want our car prominently displayed in this show or whatever. But yeah.
My mom had a Plymouth Fury too that I drove for a while. Holy shit, was that a tank?
Yeah.
We got rear-ended in it, and we were stopped at a bus was letting off some kids, and we were stopped there, and all of a sudden we just get rammed from behind. Somebody coming around the corner full speed. Their car was totaled. We had a little dent in the trunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
you're like, we can buff this out.
Yeah.
Yeah, good as new. Yeah.
Holy shit. It was one of those cars where they got it from the dealer, had like one owner, and it was like had low mileage. And then one day, it was like in the field, my dad like yanked the motor out of it to put it into a plow. And yeah. The plow totally kicked ass. I mean,
I would bet.
Well, I mean, where we lived, it was a dirt road, so the town didn't plow it. So my dad had to. You get heavy snows. But yeah, it was sad to see that car go.
Yeah, there was a show called The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo, which was a spin-off of BJ and the Bear about this cop. And in the very beginning, you see, like, I think it's like 12 or something Plymouth Furies all like stacked on top of each other or whatever. And I'm just like, man, if you watch any late 70s, early 80s show, you see nothing but Plymouth Furies.
Oh, wow. Okay, we're gonna wrap things up here. We promise everybody watching we will cover more 80s because it's a very popular topic. We had a ton of people watching tonight, so I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for joining us. RW, where do you like people interacting with you?
Right there, or there even. I mean, that's good. This is good over here if you want to, but everything if you go there at the bottom of the page, it's all the links to all my social media, TikTok and Cameo and Twitter and all that good stuff. And yeah, that's probably the best. Instead of naming off 1,000 different links, just go there.
There you go. And if you can't remember that, or you don't want to, just check the show notes. And I got it in the show notes up above or down below. Powerful Brandon.
Want to? My God, dude. Sorry, that just tickled my funny bone. If you don't want to, like, if they didn't want to follow it after reading the simple line right there, like, hey, go to a completely different section of what we're talking about right now and read it there and go there instead from that.
Well,
point.
If they go to the show notes, they just got to click. Here they need to read and then
heaven forbid. Like, no, never that, not that. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, where can people follow me or find me? Sure.
Yes.
you can come on over and join the Powers Combined Facebook group. We're just a bunch of geeks that like to share memes and info, have a few laughs. Our number one rule is don't be a jerk. If you violate that, you will be booted immediately. Then you can follow me on Twitter at Brandon's Powers and on Instagram at This Brandon Has Powers. Otherwise, you can find me here on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Dorkening Podcast.
Awesome. And for me, just Google Leo Pond. You find a bunch of stuff. Could be true, could be not. I'm not going to say which is which, but more importantly, follow these awesome people. All the information is in the show notes. I run a little thing called the Dorkening Podcast Network. We got a ton of shows on a network, a lot of awesome people doing so much awesome stuff. And with that, we'll sign off. Catch you guys later. Bye.
Synchronized swatches.